Welcome to NinjaCast, a photography podcast powered by Studio Ninja, the world's highest rated business management app, built specifically for photographers. Listen and learn as the most successful photographers on the planet share their knowledge to help you transform every element of your photography business. Here's your host, Sally Shaw.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of NinjaCast. Today I'm joined by the lovely Amy Robertson. Now today's episode is a really interesting one. We're going to be talking about how to earn six figures. Going VAT registered obviously is a big thing over here in the UK and a lot of us photographers avoid it, but Amy's going to talk about how not to avoid it and how to make it worth your while. And on top of that, switching your mindset with that imposter syndrome that we all get. Let's get started. Hi, Amy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Sally. How are you?
Yeah, really, really well. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm really excited to chat with you.
I'm really excited to be here.
Amazing. So for our listeners that might not have heard of you, Amy, give us a bit of background knowledge on you, your journey in the industry so far.
So I'm Amy. I am a photographer. I do a variety of different types of photography. So I've been a wedding photographer for 12 years. It might be 13 this year. I've kind of lost track. So yeah, I've done a lot of weddings over the years, and still very much a wedding photographer. And then I also have another business, which is brand photography for small businesses, which is called The Woman and the Wolf, which I started in 2017. And that has gone from strength to strength over the kind of last few years. I'm really proud of it. It's a good brand that's well known, and it's been a lifesaver throughout the pandemic as well. And I also do education, so I run a course for photographers. I also did quite a lot of online speaking throughout the pandemic, and I'm going to do my first in-person speaking next month. And I also last year took over Snap Photo Festival.
Wow, what an accolade. You sound like you've got a hell of a lot of experience under your belt, so I'm sure that our listeners are going to learn tons from you today. My first kind of instinct is you've done so much, you've got so much going on. How do you balance all of that? I mean, I've got enough running one photography business. How do you kind of make sure everything is running as it needs to be as a one-woman band?
Well, I'm not just on my own, so I think that's a really important thing. I definitely want to bring more people within my team over the next couple of years, but I'm sure everyone knows what it feels like to let go of stuff. It's not easy, because you can't run six-figure businesses by yourself. So I have a really amazing editor, who people might know. It's Jacob Loafman, and he's fantastic. I'm really happy that I started working with him last April, because I think otherwise I just would have died last year. So yeah, I have an editor. I also have a really great accountant. I have an amazing therapist, and I also have my business partners with Snap. So there's my mum, who's very much a silent partner, but she's got a background in finance. And then there's Rosie, who has a more prominent part of Snap, and she is actually a jazz singer and works in theatre and events. So she really brings to the table the stuff that I can't. So it's definitely not a case of a one-woman band. Ultimately, I want to have an assistant, hopefully, but that seems like a big leap, and it's also the process of onboarding someone and training them, and it might not work out. But yeah, I'd say that I manage, but I'd say that there isn't a ton of balance a lot of the time. You've got to be really strict with your boundaries, and also to make sure that you do block out time off, and that you do other stuff other than work.
Yeah, that's always the kind of the guilt, isn't it? Especially with photographers. We think, well, we come into this business thinking, I want to do this so that I can manage my own time, be my own boss, take a day off when I want to. But then actually when you're in it, it's so easy to go, no, but I've got 7 weddings to edit. I couldn't possibly, finish an hour early or have the day off. But I think it's really important what you said. I think, we look at a lot of businesses, not just photographers, but businesses in general, and we think, there's one person behind that business, but actually, although there's one person attached to the brand name, perhaps, like you said, there's editors, there's accountants, there's therapists, there's all sorts of companies that you can reach out to for help, to be able to lighten that workload, right?
Oh God, yeah, completely. Like I look back on last year, and obviously as well, like the big thing, I never planned to be six figures. Like that was, if you'd said to me 2-3 years ago that you'd add multiple six figures in a 12-month period, I would have laughed at you. So it's been almost like my survival instinct kind of almost made me a victim of my own success, because you just keep saying yes to stuff because you're worried about losing everything, and then before you know it, you've like almost overbooked yourself completely. And you've just got to kind of switch your mindset to be like, actually the work's there now. This 10 years of work that I've put in is now reaping the rewards, so I can say no to stuff. So I think that's really important. And also like pricing yourself properly. I know that I'm doing a price increase at the end of this month, because you can't work as much as I've worked over the last kind of 9 months indefinitely. It's not possible.
Absolutely. So let's dig into kind of the six figure side of things a little bit more. So like you said, it wasn't something that you planned. It was something that just kind of, well, I don't want to say it just happened, because you must have worked damn hard to make that happen. But I think for a lot of photographers, me included in that, having a six figure business almost seems unobtainable. It seems like a pipe dream. It seems like it's just, those photographers' names that you look up to that you think, oh, that could never be me. I could never earn that much money. So what are your tips? How did you do it?
So yeah, I completely agree with your point about like not thinking that it's possible. If you'd said to me like 3-4 years ago that I'd be running Snap and doing the things that I've done over the last year, again, I would have just laughed, because it just seemed totally unrealistic. The reality is that once things start kicking in, once all of your hard work, I always think of it as like, you've got a big ball and you're pushing up a big hill, and then eventually you get to the top of the hill and everything gains momentum and it can almost spiral out of control. So like, I think if six figures is something that you want to do, then you need to like plan. And you really need to look after your money as well and manage your money properly. Like that's a key thing. But I think also multiple income streams. Like I think there are some wedding photographers that can do it just on wedding photography alone. But again, it would depend on your business model, whether you're going to choose to be high-end luxury or, whatever that market is, charging over £5,000 a wedding, or you're going to do a higher volume of weddings, which then means, you can do that, but you need a team in order to do that. So, there's a variety of different ways of getting there. But yeah, good planning, and, good pricing structure, making sure that your pricing is in place. Like I very much work backwards, in the sense that I know what I want to earn in each tax year. And I break that down into how much work I want to do. And that gives me my kind of goals for bookings and what I need. It means that I know what I need to book in order to achieve that. But also, just it's having the multiple income streams to make sure you've got the support in place to be able to do that. Again, it wasn't something that I really planned. It kind of got to July last year. It was probably June, and I realized I was going to go over the VAT threshold. So I know that VAT is quite a big, scary thing for people. VAT was very, very stressful for me because there's loads of like myths about it. And, that once you go over the VAT threshold, you're going to have to pay like 10% of what you earned on the year before. Like you're going to have to immediately give the government some money, and it's going to be like 10 grand or something ridiculous like that. Or there's just loads of stories that go round about it. It's actually, with a good accountant, it's pretty straightforward. But I would say to be over the VAT threshold, you want to be bringing in at least 126,000 in order for it to be where you're not losing money. So I basically got to, and it's also a 12-month rolling period. So it's not like April to April, like the tax year, it's any 12-month rolling period. So if you think you're heading towards that, you need to be kind of checking in every month with what you've earned in that 12-month period, and then looking at the following 6 months and seeing what you're going to be earning, so you can manage what you've got bookings wise. Because obviously you don't want to, if you don't want to go over and you're not going to push into that 6 figures, then you need to stay under. So I think kind of planning and managing in that sense. For me, I got to June and realized that I was going to go over in July. The only way that I was going to stay under was to cancel 5 weddings and not take on any new work until November. That was the only way that I was going to be able to stay under. Oh, wow. So I'd like reviewed the next 6 months and realized that actually I only needed to bring in another 10 grand in order for it to be worthwhile. And I didn't want to bring my business to a grinding halt in order just to stay under. It was going to be easier for me to add that 10 grand into my business than it was to try and stay under and potentially damage my business. Absolutely. So decided to become VAT registered. I actually earned more than that 10,000. I did £100,000 between April and September. I don't think that will happen again. I think it was very much the fluky summer we had last year. But yeah, I basically became VAT registered. I'm on the flat rate scheme, which means that you pay, you charge your clients 20%. So I just changed my pricing, put them up accordingly. So you charge the client 20%, but you pay 11%. So, but you can't claim VAT back on any small purchases. You can only claim VAT back on things over £2,000. So you can actually, if you buy a new camera and you're VAT registered, you can claim back that kind of £400 or £500 that's in VAT on that camera. So there's actually some quite good benefits to being VAT registered as well. It's not like you're straight in it either. The other benefit as well was that because of the way I invoice my wedding clients, so I always, when someone books in, they get an invoice for the whole balance and then it's split into 2 payments. So my VAT registration started from the 1st of September. And I would recommend this to everyone if you're not doing it already, but those the invoices for all my clients in 2022 who'd booked before the 1st of September, I don't have to pay VAT on those payments. So it's not like I have to go to those clients and be like, I now have to charge you 20% more, or that I have to pay 11% of that final balance in VAT, because VAT is done on invoicing, not when you're paid. So actually 70% of my weddings for this year, I'm not going to have to pay VAT on. So there is a gentle ease into it if you do your invoicing in the right way. And yeah, was VAT registered from the 1st of September. It's obviously bookkeeping and VAT returns are done every 3 months. And yeah, my accountant just has me set up with Xero. I just have to make sure I reconcile payments and make sure they have my invoices. And then every 3 months I have to pay my VAT bill. But this goes back to managing your money. I split off all of my money when I'm paid into percentages. So that VAT money is always there. I don't spend it. So as soon as I'm paid, 11% of that payment goes into my VAT pot, 25% goes into my tax pot, 10% goes into my savings. I have 10% to do whatever I want with, and then 44% stays within my kind of business account to pay bills and my cost of doing business. So you just need to be organized if you're going to go over 6 figures.
Very, very organized by the sounds of things. I mean, I'm totally one of those photographers that I think, oh my God, no, I can't go over that threshold. Like I couldn't do that. So it was really interesting to see, you know, you speaking about this is going for 6 figures and going back registered and that whole process. I guess as somebody that, like you said, never planned to be there, it wasn't like you set your sights on it and you ran for it from the beginning. But it's, you know, I just think it's so inspiring to see somebody that is in business, has been doing great in business, and that's just organically happened.
Yeah. I looking back, like it was the actual process last summer was really stressful because obviously it was during that crazy summer of 2021. So the initial setup is challenging and kind of getting everything in order. But now that it's done and I'm kind of almost 6 months into being VAT registered, it's pretty straightforward once it's kind of going. You just need to make sure that you're bringing in the money. And you can always choose to deregister as well. Like you can choose to bring your earnings back down. I think that in itself takes some planning. I know that my tax bill next year is going to be about £50,000.
Oh my God.
So like, I feel like while I don't want to do 200,000 in the next tax year, but I still, obviously the way the tax system works and you're paying things, it's so backwards. I think it's going to be so much better when it goes to quarterly tax returns, because you're going to be in a much better footing if you do want to reduce your earnings back down. You're not going to have that big tax bill looming like 12-14 months down the line, which then makes you feel like you have to continue at that pace. So I think that's the only thing, is just to be aware of, once you do go over, or once you do start going into the six figures, is that it does become a little bit more challenging to bring things back down. So there's, again, just financial planning on that part as well.
Absolutely. And I guess with all of this, you've spoken before, Amy, about imposter syndrome. We've all experienced it, we've all felt it in some manner, whether we've put that name on it or not. That feeling of not feeling good enough, feeling like everybody else could do this much better than you could. How can photographers kind of switch their mindset on that and promote belief in themselves, if, not even if they're running for six figures, but just in their business in general?
So imposter syndrome never goes away. I think, I had a horrible bout of it over Christmas, because obviously we had like the Snap Christmas party. Taking over Snap was quite a big thing to do. Like, I've got to, like, the kind of pressure to fill someone else's shoes and bring that brand like back to life. It's also quite a visible position as well. And I think when you hit a certain level of visibility, like I have over the last couple of years, like you do like question, like, who do I think I am, and like why am I here? Like, it is weird. And I'd say the imposter syndrome can actually get bigger the more success you start to have. And also, I'm sure every photographer has felt this, like we've all lived in that space of like hand to mouth, not knowing how we're going to pay our bills, like the work's not coming in, we're doing everything we possibly can. And I think, of course, as creatives and business owners, like it's really hard to not take that personally. And I think that's really strong grounds for imposter syndrome to kind of take hold. For me, dealing with it, I think speaking with other people and having a network of people who are doing similar stuff to you, and realizing that they feel the same way that you do, that that they have imposter syndrome, I think is really, really important, because it just kind of validates the experience that you're having. Reflection is really key for dealing with that as well. So like when I really start to feel it, I might write down my achievements from like the last 6 months, or remind myself of like how happy my clients are with what I've done for them, or go back over work. I know that last year I had a really negative relationship with my work, because I was doing it so much that it was kind of like all I was seeing, and it just seemed very repetitive and uncreative. But actually throughout January, like going back over those galleries and doing the blog posts and realizing that I actually produced really good work last year, just having that little bit of separation when you're not in it. I think looking after yourself as well is really important to kind of maintain, a good mindset. But yeah, everyone has imposter syndrome. And I think I was listening to something with Elizabeth Gilbert the other day, and she was talking about how like whenever she's like embarking on like a new creative journey, or doing something new that she might she feels worried about, she just acknowledges that fear is always there. Like if you're not afraid, then you're a sociopath. So you've just got to like push through it, but also kind of recognize it and not try to shove it aside to kind of work with it, because at the end of the day it's just trying to protect you. So I think that's a like really important key thing as well. So absolutely. Yeah, it's just a constant flow, I think.
Definitely. I think it's one of those things, if fear is all part of pushing yourself to do the next good thing, isn't it? If you I think back to when I was a child, there was things that I thought, oh no, I can't do that. That sounds really scary. but then your parents push you to do it, or you just think, I'm going to be brave. And I think we lose that as adults, don't we?
Yeah, I think it's when we've got all the pressures of being an adult. I'm single, I live on my own, I live in London, my lifestyle is expensive, like I have to earn a certain amount of money in order to just survive, and there's no one else to do that for me. So I think sometimes my survival trait is much stronger than my fear, which forces me to be brave. But you can't be brave without being afraid. Like you have to have the two go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And I think as well, treating it like as an experiment or play, and having a little bit of mental separation. Like if this fails, then there's nothing wrong with me. I gave it my best, and I tried, and I will learn from the failure and take that forward to the next time. I think our taking things so personally is quite a big thing within our industry, and you do have to have some separation. You're not going to get it right every time. If you work at a certain volume, not everyone is going to be happy with what you do, and you have to accept that as inevitable. But you have a choice in how you handle it. And I think failure is really, really important, and embracing it and approaching it with curiosity as opposed to like, I'm a terrible person, is the better approach.
Absolutely. I love that. So let's talk Snap. For our listeners that haven't heard of it, can you give us a bit of background? Congratulations, first of all, on taking ownership of Snap. I'm sure it will be a huge success, even more so with you at the helm. So can we let's go back a little bit to kind of before you took over, and then your plans now that you've taken over as well. What are our listeners going to get out of it? How can they attend Snap? How can they find out more?
Cool. So Snap, for people who haven't heard of it, is a photography festival, conference, retreat, workshop, like whatever you want to call it. It was run by Laura Babb for 5 years, very successfully. Like one of like the big things from speaking to previous Snap attendees has been that they said it was like a life-changing experience for them. And obviously Laura approached me this time last year to see if I'd be interested in buying the brand. And obviously went away and thought about it, and said yes. And we announced everything last August. And we are doing the first kind of big festival this April, and we're really excited about it. We're very much sticking with the same format that kind of Laura had in place for Snap, because there was so much positive feedback. Like it's very much an experience as opposed to a workshop. Community is like one of the key parts of Snap as well. When you come to a Snap event, you have lifetime access to the community, and we do lots of free things throughout the year for members of the community, as well as smaller workshops as well. We just had one of our smaller workshops 2 weeks ago, which went really well. It was like the first one of the year and the first one that we've done, and it was just so nice to see everyone together, like learning, being inspired and shooting together. So it was like a taster of kind of what's to come in April. Snap is on the 25th to the 29th of April. It's in the Peak District. We have a venue which is stunning, which is right by Black Rocks. Like if you were to put a pin in the UK, like the venue would be dead center. And it's a really stunning location. So it's quite an outdoorsy type event as well. It's very much about getting back to nature. We have yoga in the mornings. And it's also residential, which is a part of the experience, is a part of forming those bonds with people. Like we want people to come away with it with new amazing friends and shared experiences that are really positive for them and their business. Then obviously there is also the education element to it as well. We've got 10 incredible speakers for this year. And the one thing we're changing, that I would say that's maybe different, is that Snap is no longer geared to just wedding photographers. While we have wedding photographers speaking, We also have non-wedding photographers speaking, and we also have people who aren't photographers at all speaking, covering a range of things from Facebook ads to online visibility to confidence. We've got one of the best confidence coaches in the UK who's coming to speak. We've also got Sam Docker and Simon Leclerc, they're talking about photography, but it's stuff that can be applied to all photography businesses, because we're well aware that, especially over the last couple of years, even wedding photographers have diversified their businesses or changed direction because of the pandemic. So we really wanted it to be a space that isn't just for wedding photographers. That's obviously the education side. We're also going to be hosting a really big style shoot, which we're really looking forward to. That's being curated by Carmela Weddings and Kirsty McKenzie. We're really, really excited about that. And we've also got other opportunities to shoot with Laura Babb, who's speaking as well, and Nadia Melli. Lots of good, healthy food, campfires, board games. We've got a big party, karaoke. We've got things in place for people who are a bit more introverted as well. We have got a quiet hall so people can go and chill out and do some work or read or watch a film, or, I completely get I'm extroverted, introverted. So I do sometimes need an hour or a couple of hours to decompress. Yeah. So yeah, we're really, really excited about it, because as I said, it's very much meant to be an experience and not just a workshop. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
It sounds incredible. Do you know, I've never managed to make it to Snap, but it's always been one of those, like you say, conference, festivals, workshops, whatever people like to call it, that I always think I've got to do it one day. It's top of my bucket list. I always think I've got to make it there eventually. And I just think every time Snap comes up, it's always flooded with positivity. It's always flooded with people's incredible experiences. And, I don't doubt that people go there and it totally changes them, their business, the way they see life in general, because it just sounds like such a, I don't know, such a life-changing few days.
Yeah, and it's because a lot of that is off of the back of the community as well. I think it's just, that mindset of community and support, and, not competition, wanting to elevate each other, I think is a really key thing, especially within our community standards. Obviously not everyone is always going to agree with each other all the time, but as well as the educators, you can also learn from the people you're attending with, and building those relationships. And, that's very much what we want to continue, because there's a saying within the community that it's not a cult.
That can often be the scary thing though, right? People see things like Snap and they think, well, there's people that go to that year in, year out, and they're there's this little clique, and I'm going to go and I'm not going to know anyone. But actually, whenever I hear of Snap, it's totally the opposite. If you're a newcomer, you're welcomed with open arms. It's like you've always been there forever.
Oh, completely. I'm a newcomer. I hadn't been to Snap before I bought it. And I've been welcomed with open arms, and the community is amazing. And they just all know how to have a good time as well, and enjoy their work, and enjoy the process of being a photographer. So yeah, we very much want to continue that going forward.
Love that. Fantastic. Amy, if there is anything that you could change over all of your career, is there anything you do differently?
Comparing myself to others, and holding myself back, because I think I've got to behave in a certain way or do things in a certain way in order to be successful. I think you can take inspiration from what other people are doing, but at the end of the day, it's what you put into it. And if you're not taking action because you're worried about what people are going to think, or it might not be what people normally do, or you're scared of failure, or you're scared of being judged, or any of those things, then you're not really going to get anywhere. So yeah, not worrying too much about what other people are doing or what other people will think about you.
Definitely. Now, this one's maybe kind of a bit similar to the question I've just asked you because you've gone into such incredible detail there. But we normally ask our guest speakers for one piece of advice, a bit of a golden nugget takeaway that our listeners can take from your episode. So if you could give one piece of advice, maybe something from your personal life or your business life, what would that be?
So I think like the biggest thing would be like I was homeless in 2018. So I've had a very challenging background. And in March 2020, everything seemed very, very bleak. And, I didn't know how I was going to survive. But I think just looking back on everything and my persistence my persistence and my consistency, I think they are the two key things. If you're a business owner, if you're a creator, whatever, you need to be persistent and you need to be consistent, and you need to do that every day. Otherwise, you're not going to change things. And it might seem like for ages that nothing is changing, and things aren't getting better, but they do, and it can happen really fast as well. You just need to keep going. Like that's the only thing I can say to people is just keep going.
I love that. That's a perfect bombshell to end on. Thank you so much. If our listeners would like to find out more about you, get in touch with you directly, or get in touch with Snap, how can they do those things?
So because I have multiple social media places, for the wedding photography side of things, the best place is Instagram for everything. So for the wedding photography side of things, you can find me at Amy Robertson Photographer. For the brand side of things and more of like the education I do, you can find me at The Woman and the Wolf with an underscore between each word. And then Snap is just Snap Photo Fest. So there's kind of 3 places that you can go and find out different things about me and what I'm doing and what I'm offering.
Amazing. That's perfect. Thank you so much again for offering up your time to come and chat with us today. I've learned tons, so I know our listeners definitely will have done. And hopefully I'll be able to catch you very, very soon.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sally.
My pleasure. Thanks, Amy. See you later.
Yeah, bye.
Okay, guys, that is everything from me today. Thank you so much again to Amy for joining us. She was an absolute star. If you'd like to see more or read the show notes, you can head to www.studioninja.co/episode 55. Please, as always, don't forget to rate us on the podcast platform that you're listening on. A little bit of love goes a very long way. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of NinjaCast, brought to you by Studio Ninja. Beautifully designed and super easy to use, Studio Ninja will help you manage your leads, clients, shoots, invoices, contracts, workflows, and so much more. To learn more or start your 30-day free trial, go to www.studioninja.co.